Hey, I'm Tor. I've been working with recruitment for over 10 years. Now I have the privilege of hosting The Ramp. The Ramp is the people podcast for ambitious companies. In each episode, we'll give you insights from industry leaders on how to build winning teams. Welcome to season 2 of The Ramp. Thank you for all of you listening in over the past year and all of the guests for making it happen. Today, we're kicking off season 2 with Anna, the Chief People Officer at Mentimeter. In this episode, we'll be covering the 4 stages of team performance, a high-performing team versus a high-performing individual. We'll also look at organizational depth, change management, bold leadership, and the difference between being in control and being controlling. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of The Ramp. Today, we are super excited because we have Anna Gullstrand from Mentimeter with us. Welcome to The Ramp, Anna.
Thank you.
Hello. Today, we're talking a bit more about high-performing teams. Anna, you are a voice in the industry, in the community around building high-performing teams. Listen to several of podcasts and also your posts on LinkedIn, and it's quite evident that you have clear opinions about this. You have experiences and insights that I think our listeners would love to tap into. So I'll just start with the key question, and that is, what does high performing teams mean to you? What's sort of the essence of that, and what are the key ingredients?
Yeah, so I guess the fundament here is like some kind of belief, if we believe in the individual or the team. And it's very clear, like in Mentimeter's values, also because of our product, that we believe like in the collective intelligence of a group, but basically that the group outsmarts the individual. And when you get a team to work together, they will reach this like magical point where like the whole is bigger than its parts, basically. So it's basically high results, high engagement, high well-being, less stress, very high standards, and yeah, they are creating a better performance and results for the company, but they're also doing it in a very resilient way. So for me, like performance in this sense is not only like the financial performance in the end, it's also like the individual healthy, resilient performance where I as an individual are happy, engaged, having fun, and also like my mental and physical well-being is on a great level because I also get that support from the team. Yeah, so that would be my definition. And then how we do it at Mentimeter is that we are using like the only basically model that is also validated and verified by academic research. So we actually know when our teams are in the high performance stage or if they are not, and where they are on that journey because we're measuring it.
Yeah. What are you then specifically measuring? What are those sort of metrics or the variables?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a very academic approach actually. So we are using a survey that is connected to this very strong research that's made by Susan Whelan. So she was doing research on teams for more than 40 years, thousands of teams around the world. And she, in her research, started to see like what's significant behavior for teams at different levels in development. So basically, you were asking questions about those, like how people are perceiving the behaviors in the group. And then by looking at people's answers, you can then determine which stage they are in. And what's so very, very shortly for people who never heard about this, it's like 4 stages that a group goes through, and the 4th stage is the high performing stage. But the road there can be quite rocky. So basically, there's this stage that's called basically like people say the conflict stage, and there's like a lot of tension, frustration. Maybe people are scapegoating or frustration. You're like challenging the leader. There's like can be a lot of things going on there, and it's very, very low efficiency and productivity in that stage. And that is also why it's so important to support the groups to pass that stage.
But But is it like a linear stage in a way? Like it's at stage 3 is difficult because people are confident and happy, but that's when they're comfortable and friction arises, and then you peak up to level 4, or is it?
Yeah, but in a way it's linear, because if you do things right, both as a group member and as a leader, you actually you go linear in a way. So like when we do this with our teams, we can see that some of our groups that are newly formed can get to a high performing stage in only 3-4 months, because they're doing things in the right way. They're focusing on the right group development at the right time. However, it is very common also that no groups are passing this conflict stage. So they're just like pendling between this stage 1, where you're like very polite and friendly, but you're not really getting the competence from the group, or like some kind of conflict that you're never addressing.
This is really, really cool. And I think the question I have would be, if you think about like these groups, and you think about, okay, I'm this group is on stage 4. We're super happy, it's high performing, but the financial results and the output is there's a dissonance between like the perceived group dynamics and also the outputs. Do you often see that, or do you always see a correlation between those two things?
No, but we actually discussed it quite a lot. I think what's important is that the goal is correct. So basically, or the goal needs to be connected to the business and be very, very, you need really to think about the goal of the group, because otherwise they can be like engaged, strong, performing, but like in the wrong direction in a way. So I think that's the first rule of groups, that you need very early to set a clear goal. That goal will be challenged also and be reworked. But you need to start somewhere, and then you need to make sure that you have the right goal. Then of course we have the other challenge, which is that it's not always a correlation between high-performing individuals and high-performing teams, because in a team, in a way, which is the magic, that it does not need to be the best programmers or the best designers or the best project managers in that team, if you just look at the parts, because the team itself is like high-performing. They are really, if they're building on each other's strength. They are really like, as a team, they are there. But that also means that like some individuals can get a bit like, what do you say? You don't notice sometimes the performance of the individual if you are in general in a high performing team. But what's really cool is that like when you work with this, then the group starts to take care of themselves in a way, because they start to give it's not the leader's responsibility anymore to give feedback or to challenge. They start to challenge and give feedback to each other. So basically they are helping each other to grow as well. So that's really cool.
Oh, it's this is really, really fascinating. And I think you mentioned something about the underperformance being maybe a bit difficult to spot, or like a mediocre versus a high performer. I don't know. How do you sort of cater to measure individual success and group success? How do you sort of make sure that, okay, here we have a free rider or whatever, right, in the team? So how do you mitigate that risk?
No, but I mean, at Mentimeter we work with both. So you also have like everyone has their line manager, and you have like a lot of conversations and one-to-ones every week, actually, like where you're focusing on your performance, and then we have the team lead who is focusing on the group performance. And in some cases they are the same person, in some actually not. So I think that it is super important also to spot the individual, and people need also the individual coaching and being challenged by their manager. But it's like when you work with these two things at the same time, you really get like a huge benefit. But I would say that so when I started at Mentimeter, I actually felt that our leadership was a bit a one-to-one leadership. Like we were over-indexing on the one-to-one leadership, which is very common, I would say. So basically, Johnny, our CEO, had like one-to-ones with all the people in the management team, but we were not working as a management team together, which I think is very common. But I think what we have done the latest 3 years, and really also we have set a system for it, is that we are honoring the team much more and the team leadership. And we're also like upskilling our leaders in team leadership, which is something else. It's not the same thing. And I'm like super impressed like by John. It's like Johnny, our CEO, this is his first job. So like, you know, no, he had jobs before, but this is his first real job. Usually, which is not a real job, you know, when you're a founder in a way. It's also, but he really like took on this challenge to become a great team leader for the management team. And we have since a few years back worked with what we call the jam jar doctrine, like which is basically that we should be in each other's jam jars. And that means for us that we are leading this company together. We are in the management team. We are all responsible for everything in the company. For marketing, for product, for sales, for people and culture, like for everything. It's not that we're only responsible for our part. And that means that we are also like challenging each other, questioning each other. If we have input on each other's strategies or whatever it is, we do that. And I think also when I listen to some companies, it's not that usual either. At some companies, you know, the department head of sales is like taking care of sales. And yeah, you know, the sales. And I think we have been now in a stage as a company where we realize that how we will win is, you know, the classic sales, marketing, and product working together. That's how we will win, because that's how also from the customer perspective it makes sense, you know. And that starts with the management team. If not the management team works together, the CMO, the CPO, and the CSO, then of course that will like trickle down. So that has been very, very important to us.
How do you sort of cater for that type of jam jar doctrine, like the culture in a way? Is it that, I don't know, the CMO shadows the CCO for a period of time, or to ensure information overlap and opening their books or whatever?
No, but I think it's more like how we meet like quite a lot, like as a management team, and we share a lot, like our whatever it is, we take in a lot of input from each other. We are challenging each other, questioning each other like all the time. So everything is like basically on the management team's agenda. And we are taking responsibility for the whole. I think that's how it looks in practice.
It sounds very inspiring and very interesting. Is a drawback of this, I don't know, too much information, oversharing, bureaucracy, like overlap or shared accountability? I don't know. I'm getting inspired. I'm like, let's do this tomorrow. But at the same time, like, okay, maybe looking at my organization, maybe, I don't know, about efficiency. I don't know. I get this sort of, a bit sort of kickback in my head around this, but at the same time, it's fascinating. So, yeah, if you could elaborate a bit more about those risks and how you can mitigate those, or if there's maybe not an issue at all.
Yeah, but I think we can connect it to the group development again, because this does not work in the early stages, but it works when you're a high performing team, because what happens then is that you're also like, if someone if you get input, then you can also say like, thank you for the input, but I do feel that I have the most knowledge in this topic, so I will like continue with this decision. So I mean, and you can say that, you can have this direct communication. No one will be insulted or take it personally, or so I do think that like it takes care of itself in a way. The information overload, if people don't have time or don't feel that they have the competence to add input or feedback, they don't do it. Yeah, but we have like transparency have always been very important at Mentimeter in our culture. So basically what we build a lot of like our internal communication on transparency. So because like as we see it there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. There's like, change is the only constant, and we're operating in a high pace environment. So one way to create certainty is to make sure that information is always there if you want it. We have like open calendars, open meeting minutes. Whoever can go into like different committee meeting minutes and check what was discussed. But we're not pushing it out to people. But it's there. What we do, it's that we are very, but because this is for me about creating like a high performing culture, that like we have our Mentimeter all hands every second week. We call it the Mental Listen Show, which is basically an
show that sounds interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
It's an interactive, very engaging show where we also make sure to add the transparency. So basically, the most like popular part of the show is the like open Q&A, or we even call it the spicy Q&A because we want spicy questions. So basically we let everyone, all employees, what's on your heart? What do you worry about? What do you want to know from maybe the management team or your department head, or maybe you heard something in the corridor that you're curious on. Like, we really want to know what's in the head and hearts of our employees, and we open up that channel always to the speakers. Sometimes it's someone from the management team who did a presentation in the show, or sometimes it's just like a product manager talking about the features their team have been developed the last month. But there's always room for questions. And then we have like upvoting, of course, with Mentimeters. So people are upvoting the questions that they really want us to address. And then there's always like time in the meeting to address top 20 questions. So in that way, we make sure that we talk about what's relevant for people. It's not that we're driving any like own agenda about what's important. We are actually like
opening the floor in a way for
spending time on the topics that are important for people. And we are in the people business. We are in a people business. Everything, our whole success is dependent on our people.
I really like that. I think that's interesting. I've been doing it all wrong, Anna.
Oh, no.
No, but it's a good point. We have a Q&A session, but it's usually in our all hands, but it's usually disproportionate in terms of time. So I think we should do it much more like 50-50.
And that's where you get the nuances as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I do think that, and I think it's so. I mean, if our customers, for example, and also your company, ourselves, I mean, there's so much change and uncertainty in the world, but it's also so much like competition is fierce. It's global competition. A lot of our customers are still in a digital transformation. There's also, I would say, almost like a human revolution when it comes to these topics as engagement, psychological safety, well-being at work. I mean, it's so much higher standards and higher demands also from the new generations, that they want work-life balance, for example, and they want much more. They want to work for a company with a higher purpose that makes like positive impact in the world. So, I mean, if you imagine all this change that needs to happen in companies, and I think what we have discovered, and also that's thanks to our product, is like the best way to do change is to, like this, people don't resist change, they resist being changed. So if you feel like someone is changing you, like from the top, you need to change, then it's like a lot of resistance. But if you feel that I'm part of the change, I'm designing the change, my competence is used in this change, and I'm getting like I have a say, I have impact, I can give my input, I can ask questions, like so that is also what we do in every small meeting, but also in our all hands. We just make sure that everyone are like creating the change together, and I think that's for me, I think that's like the biggest thing that I can see that companies are struggling with or doing wrong in a way. That is like still too much top-down leadership. And it also means that you're not taking the knowledge and competence, you're not using the full knowledge and competence from your people in whatever the challenge, the business challenge is.
What are those sort of key change management projects that you've had at Mentimeter? I assume it's been change is the constant, but what are those sort of pain points, and how did you like manage to get through that with the organization?
Yeah, no, but I actually think that two keys to success for us has been that we always say that change is the only constant. So basically that's something we just repeat over and over again. Like, it's part of your job to be in change and to do change yourself, upskill yourself, take control over the future in a way, come up with new features or whatever it is. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that we have this mindset of always iterating. So instead of doing big changes, we see it as we're always making small improvements, like taking the small steps. So then actually we never had to do any big change in the more like traditional, when we need to go from there to there. Instead, it has been very, very incremental in a way. One example was that last year we were challenging our business model actually, or go to market, because we have a free, the free version of Mentimeter was actually capped. So you couldn't, as a free user, you couldn't use that much of the functionality, only like a few question types. And we realized that like what happened was that customers or the users couldn't experience the full value of Mentimeter. So it was like blocking them too much. And then we had a hypothesis that we should instead make more of our product free and cap it in another way. And I think that was like, we do it like in iterations. We do, A, B, C, D, E tests. We do tests on smaller markets. But in this way, we needed to do a test on a real market. So we actually tested this thing at the whole Canadian market. So we just took a country and then we tested this hypothesis for that region. And I think one thing in our culture that stands out for me is like the bravery in a way, the risk, like it was like a business risk to do, but we said yes to it, both in the management team and in the board. But I think it's like, this iteration, always improving, always innovating culture.
Oh, fantastic and inspiring. And I think key takeaway there is also just sort of the incremental changes. I think when we've gone through change, we've seen, okay, this is, there are a lot of moving parts here. We need to fix this. And then we spend 3 months in like, I don't know, the new setup or the big change, and we bundle a lot of smaller changes. And I think maybe the pain for the organization is much bigger when you try to bundle it, and we're like, okay, this is another, I don't know, reorganization or a new like way of working. So I think that's a key takeaway for me, at least, to try to make change a constant, and doing incremental change also backs the constant change feeling in a way. So yeah.
And I think it's interesting what you're saying, because like reorganizations are very common, and as you're saying, like that's big for people, because like everything is threatened in a reorganization. Your status, your certainty, relatedness, autonomy, fairness, like everything is threatened. And I think that, so what we have also talked about is like that we also iterate on the organizations. We take small steps. So if we just like move a leader or move someone in a team, we just say like, now is the 1.2.3 iteration of the product organization.
It's cool.
We do that.
Yeah, that's
and
really cool.
Also, we have this mindset. It's like technical depth. So we have organizational depth. So if we haven't done smart, brave leadership, we build an organizational depth, and that if that is getting like too big, that's when you need to do this kind of reorg. So if then we have failed as we see it, because then we have not been this like very present, brave leaders that understands that are doing this like all the time. Yeah,
it's a very good point. The key takeaway that I'll start implementing today, Anna. I think that's
yeah. Like Nick,
brave leadership.
yeah, we have we're lucky to have two of our founders still operating. So Niklas Ingvar, he's one of our founders, and he is like so. This is like, he reminds me of this every day. Like it's, and it's such a smart thing.
I totally agree. You mentioned some components to being successful with high performing teams, and I think one was good team leaders, and the other one was like connecting also team success to business success in a way. So it's a combination there. So maybe just let's start off with team leadership. So how do you build these sort of good leaders? What is a good team leader versus an individual leader?
I think it starts with, as I said before, with the values. Like, do you actually believe that the team is more important, that there are more innovation, creativity, and results to get from a team working together than only like individuals? So it starts with values. So that's something we are also very, we have like in the recruitment process, for example, we have two interviews. First, a competence interview where we basically zoom in on, do you have like the skills for this job and the competencies? But then we also have a culture interview that's 1 hour only focusing on like values, beliefs, mindsets, and like behavior, where include everyone is one of our core values. So that's something we are really like, is this a team person basically? So that's important. And then what we do is we actually acknowledge that, first of all, leadership is hard because you actually, and specifically team leadership, because when a group develops, you also need to change your leadership approach accordingly. So based on what the group needs, where they are at that moment, and it's very different. So basically, one of our challenges has actually been that when you form a group, as we talked about, you need to set a clear goal, and then people need to be dependent on each other, interdependent on each other to reach the goal. That's like the definition of that goal. People need to collaborate to reach it. Otherwise, it's not a good goal for a group. So you need, and in the beginning, you need to be quite direct as a leader, because there's so much uncertainty for people in a new team. So you need like a leader who is like clear and quite directive, clear communication, set the stage. This is where we're going. This is how we're going to work together. This is our meeting structure. This is what we're doing on each meeting. So, and also build the social connections. So, and focus on relatedness. But because of our culture that is very much engaging, including, almost like sometimes consensus, decision making, all that, it has been quite hard for our leaders to be directive. So that was actually a challenge for many mentee leaders, that like, yeah, but it feels like I'm not like including my team. I'm too, too directive. Actually, that's what they need in that stage. Later on, they will need different things. So that has been, so we do like upskilling in situational leadership, basically like what approach you need to have as a leader depending on the group needs.
That is really, really interesting. And I think how that sort of stage and phase plays into the leadership styles and assertiveness of that leader. It's quite key. And as you mentioned earlier, eventually when the team develops, it's becoming more and more self-regulating in a way. They have more of this.
And what's also hard is like then the next stage is the conflict stage, when there's can be a lot of frustration and tension. But if you then keep on being directive as a leader, that does not work anymore, because then you need to shift. Then you need to start to listen much more, active listening, and you also need to more facilitate conversations, make sure that everyone is heard, that everyone you need to make sure that everything is surfaced in a way. You can't stick your head in the sand. And I think in that stage, what we also do is we use also the power of anonymity. Like, so we use Mentimeter also, like to like, you as a group member, what do you feel that we should talk about that we're not talking about in this group? And sometimes people are not ready yet to say that out loud, but they are ready to write it anonymously. And then it's the leader's job to make sure that you address those topics one by one, in a very like create a safe space, and also like really like listen to people and make people listen and have compassion towards each other. But if you just try to run over or be directive in that stage, then it just backfires.
Do you think in this sort of context, it seems like leader is key to facilitating this, the journey of the team. The team members are, of course, key as well. Yes. And as you mentioned, you need to hire the right people with the right team mindset. Do you think, could one person lead any type of team? Like, could you go in and lead developers? Do you think like that leadership facilitation is so important that you can...
Yeah, so I think actually my approach is that a great leader can almost lead any type of team. You don't need, and that's also the power of the group. You as a leader don't need to be an expert or have deep knowledge within programming or design or strategy. Maybe strategy actually you need to know quite a lot about. But the rest, because
functional understanding is less important.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the whole point, that we are different. Everyone is unique. They bring in their unique competence to the group, and that's why we can solve things together. So I think that's my, but also like if I put a counter argument, it is also that to get respect and trust from people, you also need to show that you know what you're talking about and that you have done it yourself as well. So it's both. So basically, like, for example, our sales leaders, for us, it's super important that like you can't become a sales leader if you have not first been a great sales executive or account executive, for example. You need to know what it's about to be able to coach others and also get the trust. So in a way, leadership is a universal skill, but in a way, you also need the functional understanding.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You also have your journey to this, right? Because you, from reading on your LinkedIn page and also listening to previous podcasts where you've elaborated a bit on this, you were also the interim CEO of Mentimeter for a period of time. So maybe interesting to see sort of also for other people, professionals and people from HR, how was that sort of switch in terms of like not necessarily having that CEO, or you've probably been CEO before if I read your LinkedIn correctly, but especially that sort of switch from the people function to a CEO, the CEO seat. What was that like? And mindset wise, what did you need to sort of to change or to focus more on to take on that role?
Yeah, no, but I think what I did, like, first of all, I got like very, very honored when I got the question, because it's like, even if I've been a CEO for a consultant agency, it's not the same thing as a SaaS company that is like globally with like millions in revenue. So so I got very honored, but I'm also that kind of person who loves a great challenge, and I love also stretch assignments, and it's because I love to learn new things. And I think we talked about high performers before. Like, I think like one what we also see at Mentimeter, and what I see in myself is like this growth mindset, like that you're stretching yourself, you're always up for a challenge, but you're also realizing, and I realized that I also needed to learn a lot to be able to take on this position. So I actually started with, I had a few month notice before I started. And I was like really like getting into it, like reading a lot of books, and also like listening much more to like revenue related podcasts, and and it's more like SaaS go-to-market things, because that was the things I felt that I knew less about. And I wanted to know much, much more to be able to also be a good leader for the CPO, the CSO, and so on. But I think what I trusted was my general leadership abilities. So that was what I chose to trust. Like that it's about leading the management team, but the management team, everyone in the management team are fantastic, great, competent people. And like my job is to, facilitate their greatness. So, and that mindset also put less pressure on yourself as a leader. In a way, because you don't need to know everything. That's not the point. The point is to harness the group. And also that I felt very, very supported. And it was fun because Johnny said to me that he wanted, so his like idea was that like, we checked in every week, like a phone call, but he really like, I'm going to be off. Like, it's not only on paper. You are the CEO, and when I come back half a year from now, I want to be surprised. I want you to have taken a few decisions that I did not know about, bold decisions, and I think that was very both empowering and a bit scary also, because I was thinking about that all the time. Like, am I making enough bold stuff here? Like, where is like the big thing that we should do this half a year? That, So,
Very fascinating, Ella, with regards to your journey from the people side, and also to making bold decisions in the CEO seat. That was really, really cool to hear about. You mentioned earlier about the goal setting of the team. I think there are two questions related to that. One is, how does this sort of team philosophy and high performing teams impact the organizational design and how you set up teams and team autonomy? And secondly is like, how do you build that sort of targets that they have? Are you using OKRs or KPIs or metrics? So maybe you could share some on the organizational design and target design.
No, but I think we're learning all the time and becoming more and more aware. So what we're doing right now is that we're actually making it much more clear. You should aim to be a high-performing team. This is a group. We expect you as a member and as a leader to drive this journey. So we have those groups, but then also understand that there's also a lot of other groups, like groups who inform each other, groups who meet every second week, maybe sales, marketing, and product, some kind of meeting. I mean, there's a lot of other groups, but that does not mean that group is supposed to become a high-performing team, because you have maximum, I would say, 2 teams that you belong to that should become this high-performing. So for me, as an example, it's like the management team. I'm a member of the management team, and that team should be high-performing. And then it's my people and culture management team, which is the team leads in the people and culture organization, which I lead. So that's the team that I'm a leader of. And then we are very clear. So you as leader know if you have that type of team, and we also are clear with expectations that like you need to learn about this situational leadership, and you also need to be very observant where you believe your team is and what they need. You can take help of this survey, but you can usually also actually just notice it by their behavior. And we expect you to also like try the leadership approach and make them progress. And if it's too hard, we expect you to take help from our HR business partners or other leaders or coaches or external facilitators or whatever. But it's like expected. And that we actually started with just a few months ago. We have been doing this for many years, but not as structured. And one reason we did that was that we have 9 like key initiatives this year. It's a bit like the OKR process. So those are the ones that are the definition is basically that they need to be, it's cross collaborative. So it's not only one department, it's always that departments needs to work together to achieve the initiative. And also that it's very it will have a high business impact if we succeed with it. And one of the initiatives is the high performing team initiative, Meta. But
Meta.
Yeah, but that also tells the organization that this is important, which I think is key. And what we see, which is super cool, is that we see that the teams that are in stage 3 or 4, we can really see the correlation with that and the results. Yeah. So basically, product teams who reached a higher performance stage are also getting much more features, valuable features out for the users and customers. So it's it's a super clear correlation, which is very cool to see. And also, of course, we're measuring engagement, the whole company. We're looking at it at the department level, and we can also see that, of course, the more high-performing teams you have in your department, then the overall engagement, well-being, performance is also going up. So there's very clear correlation. So that's how we approach it. And we actually did a bit more of a traditional OKR setup for 2 years, but we felt that we needed to change it. So we really gave it all, I would say. We understood that it's a big change, that is a lot of upskilling needed to understand the OKR, the OKR framework and how to work with it. But what ultimately happened was that we chose objectives where the key metrics were not moving that much. They were super hard to impact, actually. And then we realized actually that we wanted to be a bit more in control of what we were actually doing. So that was why we started with this key initiative instead, where we had the process that was both bottom up and top down, where we decided on what initiatives do we think will have the biggest impact this year. But they are much more described. It's not only an objective and key metrics, it's actually a description of what we want to accomplish. So we did exactly what you shouldn't do, describe for teams what they are supposed to deliver. But it works.
Oh, that's good. No, but at the same time, they have a lot of autonomy.
There's a lot of autonomy. Yes, for sure. And actually, I think also we over-indexed a bit before on the autonomy part. So basically we were creating too much confusion, and that's not good. So we have added more direction and more clarity, and I can see that it really works, which is not strange. It's also a human need to have certainty and know what's expected. So I think, it's you learn all the time, and we were a bit too much on autonomy for a while. It's also this trust, I trust the team, but for me as a leader, we also need to be in control. That does not mean that we need to control people or have controlling behavior, but it means that we need to be in control. Yeah. And I think we lost a bit of that, or too much. Yeah.
I've seen that a lot lately, both you mentioned tweaking a bit on the OKRs and creating a custom setup. And I think that's something something I see all the time companies are doing, because there's having this sort of generic model that's one size fits all. I don't believe in that. I think it's natural that people or companies build their own setup, but also this over-indexing on autonomy. We've seen several examples of that, and giving freedom but no accountability in a way. That's a problem. And I think people want to be held accountable. I think setting high expectations and just sort of making sure that people understand that we need to achieve something. We need an output or an outcome is essential in that sort of the culture you're building. So interesting to hear your perspective. So.
Yeah, and I think it's very common in startups, because in the beginning of course, autonomy was very, very high, and also people had direct access to the conversations, to the CEO. Like it was like strategy was discussed in this room of 10 people, so everyone was involved automatically. And I think that like when you're growing so quickly, it's easy to understand like how you scale that in a way. For us, it's been important to realize that. So we're like using this metaphor of a broccoli, because like the broccoli, if you look at the broccoli from distance, it's like a broccoli, but if you zoom in, it's like smaller broccolis in the broccoli, and it's tiny broccolis. And like if you think about a department as one of the bigger like broccolis in the broccoli, it's important to like what was maybe 3 years ago communicate to everyone, because the team was only 20 people. Now it needs to be communicated in the department. So you need to start to add like communication layers, which is not strange. And also this thing like we humans, we can never feel safe in a too big group. So then you need to like create the safety in the smaller teams. And also the information flow. I think what we miss out on is that previously then you heard everything because you were sitting in the same room as the founders and so on. But what we miss now is that now it's up to every leader that actually give that information to make people feel part of the bigger, the customer value, the impact we're doing for the world, and also what's going on in the company. That's up to every leader instead.
Do you feel like you're losing a bit of control on that narrative in a way, or like you need to trust people, but at the same time, will that story be consistent when it's distributed in that sense?
No, I don't feel that. I rather feel that we don't know if it's happening.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that it's happening.
Yeah, make sure.
Because that's what people want. They want like a clear connection to the whole in a way. Yeah. And when you're growing this quickly, it mostly for people feels like a loss. Yeah. Because you're losing all the time in a way. And also that your individual, the growth of the company is quicker than the growth of an individual in terms of skill sets. Yeah. So for a lot of people, it just feels like they're losing. Like other people are getting promoted. Other people we're taking in a VP instead of building someone internally, because it would take too much time. So I think that's hard. Like there's this feeling of loss, but it's not a loss. Yeah. But it feels like it.
Yeah. It's perceived in that way, and that's sort of usually how they perceive it is more important than what's actually happening.
Yeah, my colleague Maria always say, "Perception is reality. Perception is reality." It's good to remember because
it's true. For those who are considering implementing this or high-performing teams, how do they start? What are those steps? Which books do they read? Which TED Talks do they view? Like what was your path there?
But I mean, there's like this golden book that is very, very thin that is called Effective Teams by Susan Whelan. So I think, you just start there. It gives you a lot. And I think, but after that, I do think there's quite a lot of upskilling needed, because it's another mindset. It's really quite advanced leadership, I would say. So you need to, if you want to do it, you really need to understand that that you need to like build the knowledge within the organization first. And also that it's not only a leader thing, it's also a member thing. So basically it's not only the leaders who are getting upskilled, it's also like all team members to understand like, okay, we are a team. We're going to go through these stages. And like, how can my behavior be constructive and helpful in all these different stages? And that's a responsibility on everyone. So I would start there. And then, I mean, there's, I'm in quite a few podcasts talking about this. So
yeah, that's good. Self-promotion.
And then I think for the recruitment part, it's also about, like when you recruit to understand, is this a team person or is it more of an individually driven person, which is okay. It's just that maybe if you want to go this way, you need people who are team oriented. and that believes in the intelligence of the team and what can happen if the team reach a higher development stage. Yeah, and we're different, and that will not suit everyone. But I think, like, since I know that your company is experts within this, I do think that it is important, like when you're building a brand, like a sauce brand, it's important to be clear, like unique, distinctive. And it's exactly the same thing when you're building an employer brand. You need to be very clear what makes Mentimeter unique. And we really believe in the power of together and togetherness and the power of the teams.
You mentioned also you're doing surveys. Are those designed by external consultants? Is it a tool or SaaS? What does that look like?
We use Culture Amp, which I think is a great tool for employee surveys. We also use Mentimeter a lot for our pulse check-ins, like mental health or like stress check-ins or team check-ins or those kind of things. But on the bigger things we do 2 times a year, we use Culture. And they have a preset of questions that are like, academy research approved, plus you also can get the benchmark, which I think is very good. So you can relate your scores to other companies that are scale-ups in the Nordics, for example, or something like that.
And I think tons of learnings today. I'm super inspired going out of this meeting, and there's a lot of interesting also food metaphors with the jam jar doctrine and broccoli and a lot of stuff. So I think very valuable for our listeners. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing this. I would say, a bit pioneered way of management, and really cool that you're seeing that correlation between the outcomes and also the data showing that these teams are high performing at the right stage. So
and for us it's so simple because this is also the values of our product and the value we provide to our customers. Everything is intertwined in a way. That's nice.
Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to our first episode of Season 2 of The Ramp. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll be coming out with a new episode every single month, so stay tuned.